Good day, everyone. We, the Group 1, is assigned to report and present the Chapter 5 Global Population and Mobility. In Lesson 1, I am going to tackle about global city. So what is global city? A global city is also called world city or sometimes alpha city or world center. It is a city that enjoys significant competitive advantages and that serves as a hub within a globalized economic system and a primary node in the global economic network. Global cities transitioned from being colonial entrepots to become major financial hubs and destination centers. According to Bracken 2015, the nodal points in the global city network have formed themselves in places where networks already existed. So when we hear about global city, it refers to a large city of international influences and characters. City of New York is such an example because New York is one of the most diverse cities in the world, so it is highly international. Next is cosmopolitanism. What is cosmopolitanism? It is a phenomenon mostly associated with the global city. It has large diverse cities extracting people, material, and cultural products from all over the world. It is also described as the cultural habitus of globalization. In the end of the lesson 1, we are able to find out the attributes of global cities, world's best known global cities, and reasons of increase in global cities. The first one is attributes of global cities. Global cities as engines of globalization provides spaces for industries that produce commodities and firms that provide services such as accounting, banking, information processing, and etc. So, what makes a city a global city? Or how can we say that a city is global? So, we have here the characteristics of global cities. A global cities should have a variety of international financial services, notably in finance, insurance, real estate, banking, accountancy, and marketing. Headquarters of several multinational corporations, existence of financial headquarters, a stock exchange, and major financial institutions, domination of the trade and economy of a large surrounding area, major manufacturing centers with port and container facilities, considerable decision-making power on a daily basis and at a global level, centers of new ideas and innovation in business, economics, culture, and politics, centers of media and communications for global networks, dominance of the national region with great international significance, high percentage of residents employed in the services sector and information sector, high quality education institutions, including renowned universities, international student attendance, and research facilities, multifunctional infrastructure, offering some of the best legal, medical, and entertainment facilities in the country, high diversity in language, culture, religion, and ideologies. So those are the characteristics of global cities.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. I am Narjana A. Alam, your reporter for today. I'm going to tackle about the world's best known global cities and the reasons of increase in global cities in our lesson Global Population and Mobility. World's best known global cities. In the past century, the greatest global cities were generally the largest and centers of the world's great empires such as London, Paris, New York, and Tokyo. Today, size is not so important. Of the world's 10 most populous cities, only New York, Tokyo, and London are in the top of our ranking of the world's most important cities. Instead, what matters today is influence. The standard methods of evaluating the global importance of cities include assessing the concentration of support services available for multinationals, such as financial and accounting firms, or the size of the overall economy. Efficiency and access to capital and information is more critical to being an important global city than number of jobs, according to Kotkin 2014. So Kotkin believes that efficiency and access to capital and information is more critical to being an important global city than number of jobs. And Kotkin believes also that the regional GDP is a false measure since it doesn't reflect whether the source is global or domestic economic activity. In order to quantify cities' global influence, they look at 8 factors: the importance of foreign direct investment they have attracted, the concentration of corporate headquarters, how many particular businesses or business niches they dominate, air connectivity or ease of travel to other global cities, strength of producers' services, financial services, technology and media power, and racial diversity. They found those factors particularly important in identifying rising stars that someday might challenge the current hegemony of our two top-ranked global cities, the London and New York. Categorization of the global cities. First tier or truly global cities as the most powerful global financial articulations. These cities are London, New York, and Tokyo. The first tier of world cities, the London, New York, Tokyo, each is the largest in one of the 3 main regions of the developed world. Second tier is based on the level of their multinational articulations. The Miami, Los Angeles, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Singapore. So this 5 series is categorized as a second tier because of their level of their multinational articulations. Third tier series based on their importance of their national articulations. These series are Paris, Zurich, Madrid, Sydney, Seoul, Bangkok, Taipei, Sao Paulo, and Mexico City. So this 9 series is categorized as a third tier because of their importance of their national articulations. Fourth tier series based on subnational and regional articulations. These series are Osaka, Kobe, Kansai in Japan, and Hong Kong and the Pearl River Delta in China. So these 2 series is categorized as a 4th tier because of their national and regional articulations. Reasons of increase in global cities. The increase in global cities has been linked with 2 globalization-related trends. The first one is the expansion of the role of transnational corporations or TNCs in global production patterns. The second one is the decline of mass production along farthest lines and the concomitant rise of flexible production centered with urban areas. So these 2 trends explain the emergence of networks of certain cities serving the financial and service requirements of TNCs, while other cities suffer the consequences of the industrialization and fail to become global. Global cities are those that therefore become effective command and coordination posts for TNCs within globalizing world economy. Such cities have also assumed a governance role at the local state or local scale and within wider configurations of what some commentators have termed the globalization of of state institutions. This refers to process in which certain national state functions of organization and administration have been devolved to this local scale. An example of this would be London. Since the 1980s, London has consolidated its position as a global banking and financial center, the link from the national economy. According to SASIN 2013, there are the cause pushing the increase. Key to SASIN's concept of the global city is an emphasis on the flow of information, and capital cities are major nodes in the interconnected systems of information and money. And the wealth that they capture is intimately related to the specialized businesses that facilitate those flows. Financial institutions, consulting firms, accounting firms, law firms, and media organizations. SASIN points out that these flows are no longer tightly bound to national boundaries and systems of regulation. So the dynamics of the global city are dramatically different than those of the great cities of the 19th century. SASIN emphasizes the importance of creating new conceptual resources for making sense of urban systems and their global networks. A new conceptual architecture, as she calls it, she argues for 7 fundamental hypotheses about the modern global city. So according to SASIN 2013, these are the causes pushing the increase in global cities. The number 1 is the geographic dispersal of economic activities that marks globalization, along with the simultaneous integration of such geographically dispersed activities, is a key factor feeding the growth and importance of central corporate functions. Number 2, these central functions become so complex that increasingly the headquarters of large global firms outsource them. They buy a share of their central functions from highly specialized service firms. Number 3, those specialized service firms engaged in the most complex and globalized markets are subject to agglomerate economies. Number 4, the more headquarters outsource their most complex unstandardized functions, particularly those subject to uncertain and changing markets, the freer they are to opt for any location. Number 5, these specialized service firms need to provide a global service, which has meant a global network of affiliates and a strengthening of cross-border city-to-city. Number 6, the economic fortunes of these cities become increasingly disconnected from their broader hinterlands or even their national economies. Number 7, one result of the dynamics is the growing informalization of a range of economic activities which find their effective demand in these cities yet have profit rates that do not allow them to compete for various resources with the high profit-making firms at the top of the system. So three key tendencies seem to follow from these structural facts about global cities. One is the concentration of wealth in the hands of owners, partners, and professionals associated with the high-end firms in this system. Second is the growing disconnection between the city and its region. And third is the growth of a large, marginalized population that has a very hard time earning a living in the marketplace defined by these high-end activities, rather than constituting an economic engine that gradually elevates the income and welfare of the whole population. The modern global city funnels global surpluses into the demands of a global elite dispersed over a few dozen global cities. These tendencies seem to line up well with several observable features of modern urban life throughout much of the world. A widening separation in quality of life between a relatively small elite and a much larger marginalized population, a growth of high security gated communities and shopping areas, and dramatically different gaps of median income for different socio-economic groups.
My assigned topic is about reasons of increase in global cities. The increase in global cities has been linked with two globalization-related trends. First is the expansion of the role of transnational corporations in the global production patterns, and second, the decline of mass production along 4 these lines and the concomitant rise of flexible production centered within urban areas. These two trends explain the emergence of network of certain cities serving the financial and service requirements of TNCs, while other cities suffer consequences of the individualization and fail to become global. Ang mga pandaigdigang lungsod ay yaong sa makatwid ay nagiging epektibo sa command coordination post para sa mga TNC sa loob ng globalisasyon ng ekonomiya sa mundo. There are many reasons why some cities develop into major megacities, but not all megacities dominate international markets and politics, so are not world cities. According to SASEN 2013, are the cause pushing the increase in global cities. The first one is the geographic dispersal of economic activities. That integration of such geographically dispersed activities is a key factor feeding the growth and importance of central corporate function. Number 2, these central functions become so complex that increasingly the headquarters of large global firms outsource them. They buy a share of their central function from highly specialized service firms. Number 3, those specialized service firms engage in the most complex and globalized markets are subject to agglomeration economies. Number 4 is the more headquarters outsource their most complex and standardized function, particularly those subject to uncertain and changing markets. The freer they are to opt for any location. And number 5, these specialized service firms need to provide a global service which has meant a global network of affiliates and strengthening of cross-border to city action and networks. Number 6, tons of the cities become increasingly disconnected from their broader hinterlands or even their national economies. And lastly, one result of the dynamic is the growing informalization and range of economic activities which find their effective demand in these cities, yet have profit rates that do not allow them to compete for various resources with a high profit-making firm at the top of the system. 3 key tendencies seem to follow from these structural facts about global cities. First is isang konsentrasyon ng kayamanan sa mga kamay ng mga may-ari, kasosyo, at mga profesional na nauugnay sa mga high-end na kumpanya sa sistemang ito. The second is ang lumagong disconnection sa pagitan ng lungsod at rehiyon nito. At ang ikatlo ay ang paglaki ng mga malaking marginalized ng populasyon na nahihirapang maghanap buhay sa marketplace na tinutukoy ng mga high-end na aktibidad na ito. Sa halip na bumuo ng isang makinang pang-ekonomiya na unti-unting nagpapataas ng kita at kapakanan ng buong populasyon. Ang modernong pandaigdigang lungsod ay naglalagay ng mga pandaigdigang piling tao na nagkakalat sa isang dosenang pandaigdigang lungsod.
Let's move on to criticism of global cities. Despite playing significant roles in the global economy, global city has been known for being threat to state-centric perspectives. These cities have been accused of focusing their reach to other global cities and neglecting cities within the national outreach. These cities are more connected to the outside world than to their domestic economy.
Although they are interconnected and interdependent, global cities are always in a competitive state. Local governments have been trying to outwit each other as the global financial center. Ang mga lokal na pamahalaan ay masigasig na isulong ang mga pandaigdigang lungsod sa loob ng kanilang mga teritoryo bilang alinman sa sentrong pang-ekonomiya o kultura at mga lugar na pagbabago.
Let's move on to the global demography. So, demographic patterns were reasonably stable, human population grew slowly, and the age structures, birth rates, and death rates of population changed only gradually. Epidemics and pandemics had huge effects on populations, but these effects were short-lived and had little bearing on long-term trends. In the past 50 years, population changes have potentially huge implications for the pace and progress of economic development. For example, increasing proportion of elderly may act as a drag on economic growth, where smaller working population must provide for a longer number of non-working dependents. Rising life expectancy can also boost an economy by creating a greater incentive to save and to invest in education, thereby boosting the financial capital on which investors draw
and the human capital that threatens economies. Where a country has experienced a baby boom followed by a decline in fertility, the relative size of the workforce is increased. And global demographic trends and patterns. The global population, which stood at just over 2 billion in 1950, is 6.5 billion. The population of the world 50's least developed countries is expected to more than double by the middle of this century, with several poor countries tripling their population over the period. By contrast, the population of the developed world is expected to remain steady at around 1.2 billion, with a population decline in some wealthy countries. So, countries that are able to absorb the baby boom generation and the productive employment can experience a rapid increase in economic growth. Ang mga bansang hindi mapakinabangan, ang pagkakataong ito ay may panganib na lumikha ng malaki. Talamak na kulang sa trabaho at lalong hindi nakakagambalang mga populasyon sa edad ng mga pagtatrabaho. Because the disparity in population growth between developed and developing countries reflects the existence of considerable heterogeneity in birth, death, and migration processes, both over time and across national populations, races, and ethnic groups. The disparity has coincided with changes in the age group composition of populations. An overview of this factor illuminates the mechanisms of global population growth and change.
I am going to discuss to you the effects of global population. Globalization has direct effects on demographic process. In demographics, the term world population often used to refer to the number of humans currently living. So, ang global or world population ay ang bilang ng mga tao na kasalukuyang nabubuhay. Those includes movements of people within and across national borders, health and fertility outcomes, and changes in age structure. So, it is logical na ang pagtaas ng populasyon ng tao sa mundo ay nagdudulot ng karagdagang mga strain or dumi sa mga mapagkukunan or resources. More people means ng pagtaas ng pangangailangan para sa pagkain, tubig, pabahay, energy, healthcare, transportation, at higit pa. So let's proceed to overpopulation. Overpopulation is an undesirable condition where the number of existing human population exceeds the actual carrying capacity of Earth. Overpopulation is caused by a number of factors. So ang pagbawas sa dami ng namamatay, mas mahusay na mga pasilidad na medikal, pagkaubos ng mahalagang mapagkukunan ay ilan sa mga dahilan ng nagre-resulta sa overpopulation. Posible sa isang lugar na kakaunti ang populasyon na maging makapal o dumami ang populasyon kung hindi nito kayang mapanatili ang buhay ng mga tao. The effect of overpopulation are the following. The first one is pressure on limited resources. Binabawasan nito ang dami at kalidad ng likas na yaman sa pamamagitan ng labis na pagsasamantala, masinsinang pagsasaka at pagkakapira-piraso ng lupa. Letter B is deforestation. It refers to the decrease in forest areas across the world that are lost for other uses such as agricultural, croplands, urbanization, or mining activities. Ito yung pagnipis ng kagubatan na gawa ng mga tao. Ang deforestation ay kumakatawan sa isa sa pinakamalaking issue sa pandaigdigang paggamit ng lupa. Ang mga pagtatanya ng deforestation ayon sa kaugalian ay nakabatay sa lugar ng kagubatan na hinawan para sa paggamit ng tao. Kabilang ang pag-alis ng mga puno sa mga produktong gawa sa kahoy at para sa mga cropland and pastulan. Letter C, lack of fresh water. Global climate change due to deforestation is impacting freshwater supplies everywhere. So letter D, Increase in industrial and community waste. Ang industrial waste ay maaari ding nakakalason o mapanganib na basura. Sa hindi maayos na pangangasiwa, ang ganitong uri ng basurang pangindustriya ay maaaring magdulot ng pinsala sa mga tao, hayop at sa kapaligiran sa pamagitan ng pagkontamina sa mga daluyan ng tubig tulad ng mga ilog at lawa. Letter E. Air, water, and land pollution. Ang air pollution ay maaaring makapinsala ng malaki sa dami ng yamang lupa at tubig. Kapag nadudumihan natin ang ating hangin, nadudumihan din natin ang ulan na bumabagsak sa mga anyong tubig at mga lupa. Ang epekto ng populasyon sa hangin sa tubig ay hindi palaging nakita. Maaaring mukhang malinis ang ilang ilog, lawa o baybay, ngunit marumi pa rin dahil sa acid precipitation mula sa ulan, niebe at particulate matter. Letter F. Increased density of population. Ang pagkakaroon ng mga trabaho at aktibidad sa ekonomiya sa loob ng isang rehiyon ay humahantong sa pagtaas ng density ng populasyon. Ang mga lokasyong mga mabisang infrastruktura, kabilang ang transportasyon, energy, tubig at kalinisan ay karaniwang makapal ang populasyon. Letter G. More mining of mineral resources. Ang mga yamang mineral ay hindi nagbabago. Kapag na-extract, wala na ang isa at matatagal pa bago mapunan. Ang aktibidad ng pagmimina ay nahaharap sa issue ng pagpapanatili. Implikasyon. Maaaring magkaroon ng malubhang implikasyon kung ang issue ay hindi maayos na matugunan. Habang ang pagtatayo ng account ng asset ay para sa iba pang likas na yaman at walang alintangan na mahalaga. Ito ay mas malaga para sa mga mineral dahil sa pagkaubos ng mga pagkukunan ito. Population growth. It is the number of humans on Earth. So dahil sa pagdami ng tao, pinapataas din nito ang pangangailangan sa pagkain. Bukod dito, population growth and globalization ay nag-aambag sa pagtaas ng mga greenhouse gas emissions dahil karamihan sa mga prosesong ginagamit upang makabuo ng enerhiya na kailangan at mga proseso para sa pagbibigay ng pagkain, lalo na ang mga hayop para sa lumalaking populasyon na may higit sa kayamanan ay bumubuo ng greenhouse gas emissions. Ang greenhouse gas emissions ay may malalayong kapaligiran at pangangalagang pangkalusugan. Nagiging sanhi sila ng pagbabago ng klima by trapping heat at nag-aambag din sila sa sakit sa paghinga mula sa smog at air pollution. Kaya dahil sa greenhouse gases, nagbabago ang klima. These are the impact of population growth. The impact of population growth on physical environment ay bumubuo ito ng pollution. Nakakaimpluwensya sa pagbabago ng klima at nagbabanta sa pagkakaiba ng mga species. Physical environment means non-living environment on the land, air, water, soil, and materials, while the impact of population growth on biological environment are water crisis, destruction of habitats, poaching and killing, and generation of waste. Biological environment comprises on human, biological system,
That's all
flora
for
and
our
fauna,
report.
living
Thank you.
creatures from moth to midget.